Hey, welcome to Viewpoint Christian Academy. Did you know that there is a direct connection between the first Thanksgiving and Christian education? Hey, I'm going to tell you some more about that in today's devotion. Stay tuned. All right, so how many of you are familiar with the story of the first Thanksgiving? Of course you are, right? With the Pilgrims and coming over on the Mayflower and having a very difficult first winter, and then they have success in the following spring thanks to the help of Squanto and Samoset and the Massasoit Indian tribe. And at the end of that first harvest, things are so good and so wonderful that they invite the Indians to come on over, the Massachusetts tribe. They come on over and they have a big old feast, and it lasts for several days. They brought, and maybe you did or didn't know this, but it was actually the Indians that came to that first Thanksgiving that introduced us to popcorn. Yeah, that's right. They discovered popcorn and introduced it to us. So every movie that you have ever enjoyed with lots of butter and salt and a big thing like that, that's because of the first Thanksgiving. Well, there's another reason to give thanks there, right? Okay, but did you know that there's a connection between Christian education and the first Thanksgiving? Why? What was that? Well, see, why did the Pilgrims even come over here in the first place? Well, many people would say the first reaction is, well, number one, they wanted religious liberty. And that's true. They wanted to come to a land where they could worship God according to the dictates of their heart. They wanted to come to a place where they could set it up so that they could worship God the way they wanted to worship God. Because in England, if you didn't belong to the Church of England, you were ostracized, you were persecuted, and they had a lot of problems. And so they came here. Yes, they did. They came here looking for that freedom of religion. But many of you may or may not be familiar with this, but before the Pilgrims came here to the New World in Massachusetts, they actually left England and went to a place called Holland. Holland is a country over in Europe, and they went there, and guess what they found in Holland? Religious freedom. They were actually free in Holland to worship God the way that they wanted to worship God. However, they had a couple of problems. One of the problems was it was very difficult for them to make a living, and they were finding it very difficult to provide for their families. It was very difficult to get the resources that they need. Holland wasn't doing all that great economically. Things weren't working out so well that way. That was one reason. But another big reason where they said, we can't stay here in Holland. We've got to go find someplace else. Another really big reason is they realized that the more time they spent in Holland, the more they were losing the younger generation. Their children were being severely affected and influenced by the very worldly people and the very worldly environment of Holland. It was very ungodly, and a lot of wicked influences that were affecting the young people. They were losing their young people. And they said, this is not good. Not only are we having economic struggles, but we're losing our kids. We've got the freedom to worship the way that we want. In fact, some of them would even print tracts and Bibles and send them back into England to try to evangelize to other people. So they had the freedom to do that, but they were losing their kids. And so they said, this isn't going to work. We've got to do something else. And so to save their children, you know what they did? They got on a boat and they made a perilous journey across the Atlantic Ocean. And they came to a place that they had never seen before, that they had never known before. And they came to this land here over in Plymouth, Massachusetts. And they set up one of the second, or only after Jamestown, permanent English colony here in what would later become the United States of America. And it was really the Puritan settlement in Massachusetts that really was the impetus for the founding of the United States of America. Do you know why we celebrate Thanksgiving? Because some parents said, you know what? I can't sit back and watch my child be influenced like this. I can't. I gotta find some place for them to go where they won't be influenced by evil, where they won't be influenced by all of these worldly things, some place where they can go and be free not only to worship, but also it'll be a safe environment to raise them in the ways of God. You know, Jesus said to Peter, after he rose from the dead, he asked him 3 times, Peter, do you love me? And Peter said, well, you know I love you. And what did he say each time? He said, feed my sheep. Well, first he said, we translated in one version, you know, King James translated, feed my lambs, then feed my sheep, feed my sheep. But you know the word feed in the Greek, all 3 times is the word bosco. And that word bosco isn't just feed. Like I have a dog, and if I want to feed the dog, I'll pour food in a bowl. Or if I have a treat, I'll put my hand out and the dog will take the treat. It's not that kind of feed. The feed that's being referenced there is to bring them into a grazing area, to bring them into a pasture land where they can find good food. It's not just about the food that's put before them, it's the environment where they can actually eat the good food. Right? Feed my sheep. The Pilgrims decided they were going to feed the lambs, feed the sheep of God. And that's why we celebrate Thanksgiving. So as you're celebrating Thanksgiving this month, try to remember that there's actually a connection between the first Thanksgiving and what you're experiencing right now. Christian education. Hey, happy Thanksgiving. God bless you. Have a great day.